Welcome everyone to the Social Living Podcast. We are now on episode 10. Episode 10. We are now in double figures, man.
Yeah,
We're in
man,
double figures.
we're there. The progress.
Yeah, trust me, it's mad progress. That's 10 in the bag. If if if
Mm,
if we scored a goal every week, I'm on course to get the golden boot. So yeah, we're
definitely.
trying to get we're trying to get that on podcast terms. So yeah, man, big up number 10, man. Is there any meanings out there for you? Number 10.
Okay, when I think of 10, I'm gonna stay away from football, and I'm gonna stay away from football and into politics. And when
Okay,
I think of 10, 10 Downing Street comes to head, and that's
okay.
only because of what happened over the last 18 months with COVID, and how how much I've been paying attention to politics. Because before COVID hit, I would not have heard Boris Johnson speak at all or paid any attention to what he's been saying. But I feel
You
like the
know what?
whole COVID situation has made me pay more attention to what's been going on, who's running our countries, and decisions that have come from it. But yeah, I
So
think that's a bit,
are
yeah,
you
because
are you saying this might be off a piece a little bit, but are you saying that COVID has helped you become more in tune with what's happening and how our country is being run?
no, for sure, because
Yeah.
COVID's put us all in a position where the government are basically dictating our lives in terms of maybe the furlough scheme, restrictions. So yeah, we've been forced into they forced our hand really to pay more attention to what they're saying, and yeah, kind of obliged by that as well. This could easily go into the episode we had last week about conspiracies and, and all that as well. So I'm trying to stay clear of that, but no, they definitely have made us all pay more attention to them.
Yeah, no, you're right, I can definitely agree to that. I feel like as I got older, I've been listening more to like things like BBC Five and what was it, BBC Radio Five, and
Hmm.
LBC. Just like listening to certain conversations. I think the situation around Brexit was probably my entry point into like really paying attention in terms of what's happening in our country, what affects it,
Mm.
things are happening. So I've always tried to keep my ear um towards the Brexit situation. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Like, number 10 Downing Street, yeah. And if you're from any other country, number 10 Downing Street is obviously where our prime minister lives. So that's like the equivalent of like the White House for Joe Biden
Yeah.
over in the US. So
Mm.
yeah, that's a good one still. You know what? For me
What about you, Jules?
personally,
Yeah, what's it for
yeah,
you?
for me, I'm going with football this week. I think it's
Okay,
quite
switch
fitting.
around.
Yeah, switcheroo because it's quite fitting with today's guest topic. You see, so I thought, you
Mm.
know what, number 10. And you know what? I'm just going to go straight there with the players. So for me, when I think number 10, I automatically just go to Ronaldinho. And like
Mm.
for me, when I was growing up, Ronaldinho was one of two of the most influential players for me. Like
Definitely, definitely.
I could appreciate like your Zidanes and stuff like that, where Zidane early on in his career I probably didn't see as much, but like I felt like I saw the whole of Ronaldinho, you know,
Hmm.
and I feel like it just influenced the way I played football, my style.
Definitely.
I didn't think I didn't do any tricks before Ronaldinho came into the picture. He just
Uh,
made
Ran
tricks
out.
look so cool.
Mm.
Yeah, go on.
Ronaldinho, I think he made football look enjoyable. He turned
Yeah,
he turned what was a serious game into a game of just banter really, and the way he used to mock players is yeah, it was an absolute joke. But Yeah,
Yeah, like
he's a goat, man. He's up there. He's up there with the Ronaldo and Messi's because yeah, the stuff he used to do on the pitch was unheard of.
yeah, and like you know what? Like it's the creativity, because it was like entertainment when you're watching it. Like I
Mm,
feel like he's a little bit different to Messi and Ronaldo simply because I think, with Ronaldo, with Messi, like they're obviously the best players that we've ever seen touch the earth. But in terms of entertainment and joy, I feel like, Ronaldinho gave me more of that, you know, like he wasn't always so serious and he would just go and enjoy. And it was like literally like how maybe all of us or most of us, how we enter into football. It's that joy, it's that, you play with
hmm
a smile on your face. It's not always so serious. And
hmm
like, when I play football sometimes, and I assume a lot of players go through this, is that, you want to feel like you're playing with your friends. You don't want to feel
Definitely.
like it's a job. And I feel like when you think of joy in football, you're gonna think, Ronaldinho. I think there might be a few players out there now who play with a smile on their face, but I don't think anyone's ever done it as good as Ronaldinho.
I think yeah, talking about now as well. I think that there might be a handful of players that you can visually see them playing with a smile on their face. I think the game's
Yeah,
changed and it's a lot more serious, and you don't see that enjoyment as you used to back in the day with the likes of Ronaldinho, like Zidane blessing the pitch. You just don't see that anymore. It just shows how the game has developed over time. But yeah,
yeah,
Ronaldinho needs his flowers. He needs his flowers ASAP.
100%, man, 100%. So yeah, man, for me, number 10 episode. This is the Ronaldinho episode, but kind of moving on to like the whole topic of this podcast, man. I feel like Jamal, you're going to be put in the hot seat today. This
Yeah,
is
man, the
this one's
spotlight's on me.
dedicated. This one's
Spotlight's on
dedicated.
me.
This one's dedicated to you, man. I really want to like, really dissect your journey to where you got to now. Like, I
hmm
think it's a really credible story, and I think that it's one that needs to be told. And we're gonna do our best to kind of go through that. So the title of this podcast today, of course, is how to go from a pro footballer to a career in social media marketing. That in
hmm
itself must be, some people might think, oh, like, how do you do that? And I feel like in today's day and age now as well, social media is so widely used. So there's probably a lot of footballers who feel like they could probably make that transition quite easy. But in
Yeah.
terms of like the lower end of the spectrum in being that, playing you're a professional footballer, but you're down in the lower ranks. You're not like playing for Arsenal. When you leave Arsenal, you have like may have loads of options. This is like,
hmm
your League Ones, your League Twos, your conference. It's kind of really, down in the gutter and trying to make things work. Um, and yeah, I want you to kind of just give an insight into what you went through. And if there's anything that we can uncover and share that can help somebody else. I definitely want that to be heard. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like my journey hasn't really been told, and even to like those around me, I bet I don't really touch on it. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting episode, but I hope it is
yeah,
anyway.
that's 100%. Let's take it right back. So obviously, surprise, surprise, you were a professional footballer, right? So you
Yeah, man.
know this is many, many, many millions of kids, millions of kids. This is their dream, right? And you've achieved something that many haven't. There's loads of
hmm
uncles and dads who'll be like, "Yeah, I could have made it, but I broke my leg, or I had this
Yeah,
injury."
yeah.
But
That's the
there's a lot,
story. The story. Mm.
there's a lot of talk, yeah, but you actually got your professional contract. So, um, let's talk about the lead up to that. Let's talk about your entry point into football first. Like we did just speak about Ronaldinho, so let's talk about like your entry point into football. How were you encouraged? You know, what kind of made you get into football in the first place?
So like if you strip it way, way back, I probably started playing football when I was 4 or 5. It was a case of my dad taking me to my local club, which is Abbeymead Rovers. Um, Initially started off, I wasn't in like the best team. They done the team structure was by colours. So I think Reds may have been like the best team, and then it was Blues, and I was like Greens, which is might be in the fourth team. And then so yeah, I was just playing, enjoying it as a youngster, as youngsters do. Um, I'd say I got to what age? About year 4, year 5, where I started to understand football a bit more, and I noticed that I had a bit of ability. I was on a different level compared to the level I was playing at was like the fourth team in my local football club. I think it was at that point that I started to move up the ranks within Abbeymead. Um, and then I started playing for my school as well. And then I started attracting attention from Cheltenham. I ended up having a trial at Cheltenham. Um, yeah, this was my
Do you
year
know
five,
what? Do
year
you know what league?
six.
Do you know what league Cheltenham Town were in at that time?
Ooh, I want to say League Two.
League Two, yeah, yeah. I think it was in
Yeah,
League
I
Two
want to
for a
say
long.
League Two. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I had a trial at Cheltenham, but it was a strange one because normally at that age you have a maybe a month's long trial, but my trial period lasted a year, I think. Yeah, a year almost. I was just in it like they kept prolonging it. I don't think they saw enough, or they might saw a bit of my ability, but they didn't see enough of it. And that the decision making process last the season. At the end of the season, they said, "Okay, cool, we want to sign you." But during that season, I also had Gloucester Primary Schools, which was my local school football foundation. I think might be the best way to call it, where you'll count your city or your town will have a best 11 in year 6 or a best squad of people. There was an A and a B team. I was in the A team, and you'd go off and play other different counties within England, which was yeah. Looking back on my footballing career, that was one of the best experiences I've had. I was able to travel through football, play against some decent names. I found out the other day, who was it? Casey. I found out I played against Casey Palmer. Um,
totally.
when I was playing against, I think I was playing against Lewisham, and he was playing for Lewisham at the time. I only found out that about 2 weeks ago. But yeah, these names that you didn't really realize who you're playing against, but that was their level. The primary schools um foundation was that, and it was then when I really kind of honed into my style of play and the way I wanted to play football. Um, Gloucester Primary Schools kind of looked at me differently than Cheltenham looked at me. I was a number 9. I was like a target man. Imagine a target man at year 6. Yeah, madness, madness. But that was what I was. A bit chunky. My mum was feeding me probably too many dumplings and I can saltfish, but I made do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So at that time, Gloucester Primary Schools was going well, but Cheltenham, my position at Cheltenham was right on the fringes, I guess. And it wasn't until I had that season with Gloucester Primary School that kind of gave me the confidence to go into Cheltenham and start pushing on. So that's year
Wait, so
6, and then
so let's wait. Let's just quickly just have an overlook of that. So so this is all like year 6, right? This has all happened
mhm,
basically before the age of 12. And you've
mhm,
mentioned a couple things there. You've mentioned that, you've kind of gone through not maybe sticking out so early on, like you're not like standing out, sorry.
mhm,
You're paying for fourth team for Abbey Mead, you're going through, but you're just being consistent with it, you're still playing and you're enjoying it. And then
mhm,
you kind of started to, understand the game a little bit better. You're probably obviously getting some good coaching. End up playing for I don't know if I should call it your district, but like obviously the best players from all the primary schools in the Gloucestershire. I think it's a borough, so it's the City of Gloucester borough, and you end up playing for the primary schools. So it's like it's almost like feeling like you've been selected for your national team,
Yeah, yeah,
but on
it was very similar.
like on a primary school level. Because I obviously I remember watching you
Mm,
back in those days, and it was like there was always like rumors of different players like, oh, this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's already on the books over here, and there was all this already,
mhm,
at
mm.
such a young age. And obviously, you said that you got to travel. Can you just touch on like maybe some of the places that you had to travel, and also like how were you getting to these places? Was it mum? Was it dad? Was it Abbey Mead? Was it the
This
coaches?
is a
Like,
yeah. This is a good topic. Yeah. So yeah, places we traveled. So we traveled as far as Jersey, Isle of Wight, Isle of Man, and then within the UK as well. But yeah, it was just places I've never been to until that point. But then yeah, how I get to games is an important one because I feel like with a lot of minorities or disadvantaged kids, travel is probably one of the hardest bits of playing football, progressing with football. My dad's worked around the clock, so he used to take me to football when he could, sorry. But apart from that, a lot of the time I relied on friends or the other players' parents to get to and from football. And with I can literally think of all the parents that used to take me to football within my career. But yeah, it was definitely a shared
giving thanks.
experience in terms of travel. What's that?
Of course. You're obviously giving thanks and you're grateful for all those people that was able to kind of take you to football. And
Definitely, definitely.
I'm sure there was like car sharing going on and things
Mm,
like that, or carpooling, I think they call it. So,
mm,
that's good. So you got to know the country a little bit, and this is already at 12 years old. That's a lot.
mm.
And that's an achievement in itself. Even if your career stopped there, you could say like, you know what, football, I was really good and it taken me to different places already. So I guess now you're about to enter like secondary school, and then obviously puberty kicked in, there's growth, there's all this stuff now. So like let's
Mm.
dive into that that time of your life and your footballing career and what your
Yeah,
aspirations are as well.
no, that's important. It's important that you mentioned puberty because yeah, year seven, year eight, I went from being quite stocky to a string bean. Like, I was probably one of the skinniest boys in my year, but it was
Yeah.
to my advantage because I became more lightweight, more agile, quicker, and I was able to use that to my advantage. But I also had kind of like the know-how of maybe like holding the ball up when I was a bit more chubbier and taking contact a bit better, which the other kids maybe didn't have. They didn't really have that experience at that age. So yeah, it kind of made me like maybe round my game more so earlier on in my career. But yeah, I guess year seven, year eight, I'm going into school football. Yeah, if I'm honest, I was a boy. Like if everyone knew me for football, I didn't do anything else. Break time, my half-hour break, I was there with the tennis ball and the tennis court, running around people, nutmegs, everything, flip flops, mashing up my school shoes. My dad must be vexed. Even now, as a parent, I'm thinking, boy, when Elias gets to school and he's going through a pair of school shoes every term, it's gonna add up. It's gonna add up. But what me playing, I didn't think of that. Even my dad even used to tell me, bring trainers, just bring trainers. And I still didn't listen. I didn't put the trainers on. I was still playing football in my school shoes. But yeah, that's what I was known for. I was known as the footballer, and that's all I really cared about throughout
Yeah, yeah,
school. I did focus on my education. Like I left school with good GCSEs, but my main focus was football, and that's what I did. Didn't speak to girls. I didn't care about girls. Didn't care about going out. Just wanted to focus on football, and it wasn't up until maybe year 10. It wasn't something I took too seriously. It was just something I knew I was good at, and yeah, I just enjoyed playing. And then it got to year 10, year 11, and you start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do next? Like, what do I want to do after school? And it was at that point that the government announced that they moved so once you finish school, you still had to stay within education. But before that, you could leave school at 16, and that was it. So
Yeah, yeah.
everyone had to think about their options at that moment in time. And
Mm.
whilst everyone was thinking about college or sixth form, that wasn't really in my mind. That's when I thought, right, I want a scholarship. Like, I'm at Cheltenham at the moment. I'd even say up until year 9, I still was in the fringes. I wasn't the main guy at Cheltenham just because of
Yeah.
the caliber of player they had at the time. And when I think back, it was probably down to like growth spurts. A lot of the players that were doing well had their growth spurts early, and I was still lagging behind. I was still quite scrawny and small. Um, yeah, so it was only up until like year 10, year 11 that I started taking football a bit seriously and wanting to get that scholarship. So again, yeah, I just started this practice. Me and my brother in the garden, on the landing, in the house, wherever, in the park. We just used to spend our entire free time just kicking the ball about. And what at the time we probably didn't realize, but that was like compounding. Every time we were playing, it was just compounding that experience, touch getting better. And yeah, over the 2 year period, I ended up getting offered a scholarship for 2 years at Cheltenham.
Mm. And,
But yeah, looking.
I was gonna say, so
Sorry?
the year that you get offered your scholarship, did you like were you confident you were gonna get it? And then was there anybody? How many others got it, and how many out of how many group of boys? Just so we can get a ratio in terms of um how lucky you were, or like not how
Hmm.
lucky. You obviously definitely deserved it, but like just to give the ratios out there, because a lot of people go in, they join clubs, and they just feel like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna get this, but not knowing the odds are already against them.
Yeah, the it's good that you mentioned this because I'll mention it in a bit about ratio and the likeliness of people turning pro. But yeah, so in terms of like the year 11 squad, there's probably a squad of maybe 15, 16 players, and out of
Mm.
that, 5 or 6 got scholars. So yeah, what's that, like 30%? 30% of the players,
Yeah,
which isn't a lot if you think about it, because at
yeah,
that time, all of us would have been focused on getting a scholarship, and for those that didn't get it, it must have felt like the world crashed a bit, and they had to then look at other alternatives. But okay, just to talk about what I didn't like about that situation and what clubs can do better is to maybe make that decision about who they're going to keep on early on, because it was pretty late if from what I can remember. I was offered a scholarship. Oh, it might have been maybe like March time, and that's late in terms of
towards the end of the
next
season, right?
steps. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
towards the end of the season, and in the actual school year, you're you're in your knees deep in exams, and your focus is exams. So if you get told bad news during that time, it can throw people off, which affects their future. So yeah, advice for clubs is to make that decision earlier because they would know before Christmas. So make that decision before Christmas, just to help those that aren't getting scholarships.
that's a,
But yeah,
yeah.
we can't.
That's fair enough advice. I think I'm trying to think of it
Mm,
from the club's point of view as well, in terms of like preparation for the next season and what they feel like they might need and who they feel like might be long term. Because
mhm,
from Christmas you might see someone really grow, especially with dealing with kids here. Like you might see someone really grow in that last 6 months or 3 months of the
mhm,
win out of the season. So it's like I don't know if it's always going to be as clear cut, because
mm,
I've seen players really just step up and then they kick on, and then but it was like they just find their feet and they start to get a level of understanding, and like
yeah.
sometimes that click doesn't always happen straight away in a season. I feel like if you get a whole full season, you got a better idea as opposed to just half a season.
Now you're
But
probably right. You're probably right, but then there's also an issue at the moment in terms of like player well-being and how you look after the players, because this is stuff like this that clubs have to start taking into consideration about the
yeah,
players
yeah,
that aren't their go-tos are kind of disregarded, but they still have a life to live afterwards. So it's just about
yeah,
how we manage it all as so that just people in general are better off, whether they get scholarships or get pros or are released, just to look after them a bit better. Because we're touching that as well about being released and my situation around that and
yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
you left. But yeah, to jump back into it, so yeah, I was offered a scholarship at Cheltenham for 2 years. Um, started preseason flying. Like I think everyone was shocked how well I started preseason. The gaffer at the time was Mark Yates, the first team gaffer, and he took a liking to me, and which is quite rare so early on. Um, especially in my first year as a scholar. Um, yeah, I don't know how many goals or assists I had during that career, which is quite bad. But it was a decent amount for a first year because you don't in a first year you don't really expect too much in terms of in terms of starting every game, which I did. Normally you're in and out because the second year is going to take priority. But
Yeah.
well, yeah, okay. One in terms of starting, and two in I guess like ROI and like return on like in terms of
That's
goals and assists, which was good. I had injuries through that as well, which was tough. Being a young player, it's hard to know what to do with injuries and when to play through it and what the situation is around injuries, especially if you get injured and then you're trying to get back in the team and then you can't get back into the team. It's a lot of it's a lot of understanding that's needed that you go through that you don't really at the time you just think, oh, the manager's being an idiot, but that's part of the game. Like you
because
soon realize that when you go into men's football, it's ruthless.
yeah, yeah, it
That's
really
just
is.
part of it.
It really is. I was
Yeah,
gonna
that's
ask you, so when you were injured, do you feel like did you feel like you had a lot of support? Because obviously I'm assuming you're at a pro club, so you're getting obviously specialists to see you. Um, where like obviously I heard you had like an Achilles injury,
hmm
and you know like from the outside looking in, like you got a lot of support. But do you feel like mentally you were supported as well as physically as well?
I didn't even touch on my injuries, you know. That's yeah, I skipped that. So during my youth team career, so throughout my school years, I had Achilles tendonitis, which is like growing pains within your Achilles. So I was out for all in all for about a year. And then year nine, year 10, I also had a an abnormal bone cyst grow in my tibia, I want to call it, which then needed surgery. So then I was out for another 6 months. But yeah, just to talk about whilst I was a scholar about support. Yeah, in terms of like physically, it was a pro club, and they had the youth team physio and the first team physio as well as like specialists if they needed it. And physically, they were fine. We had rehab programs which we do every day. The physio was there to support us. If there was other injured players, they'd be around us with us as well. First team as well, we'd all do rehab together, which helps. But in terms of like that mental aspect, I don't think that was addressed at that time. I'd only say recently in the past maybe 3 or 4 years that players have started opening up about their mental health during times that they were injured, like the likes of Jack Wilshere, um, Aaron Ramsey, like those guys have started speaking out about it. But whilst I was playing this was like 2014, 2000 yeah 2013, 2014. There was no talk about mental health within football wasn't spoken about as much as it is now. So yeah, I guess there wasn't that support there in terms of mental well-being. But we've
Okay.
spoken about this before, but that's definitely something that should be addressed in terms of having a physical therapist in terms of a physio, but also having a mental um therapist, if you want to call it, a mental health expert to go alongside that, just so that players are looked after. Because I've seen stories over the last 3 or 4 years about players with depression, players that have committed suicide. There was a guy from Forest Green Rovers, I want to say last year or the start of this year, that took his own life. But yeah, it's just that making sure there's support for those guys.
Yeah,
There's also that guy, the young guy from Man City as well, that got released about a year ago, and he ended up taking his own life. But yeah, it's just that having that support there, because it is tough
but
and it can be quite
specific.
an isolating thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
of course. I completely understand. And I was gonna ask, so like specifically to you, did you feel like mental health was a thing then, or um like were you aware, like did you feel like you were vulnerable at any point, like if you were like injured or not in a team or anything like that, or was it just like you felt like you had the mental capacity and you had a clear vision and you were just like, yeah, I'm gonna just take, once I get my chance, I'm just gonna take it kind of thing. And
Yeah, it
when
was
that
like that. Yeah, it was. I just kind of thought, oh, I'm injured. This is part of football. I'll get back eventually. I get that. I guess that could be quite naive of me, because some people have longer injury spells, or don't end up going back, or when they do go back, they're not the same. But fortunately, my injuries wasn't too severe. But
okay.
I guess in terms of football and mental health, I didn't probably experience that until I was a pro. Obviously, through your youth team career, you have ups and downs. You're in form and out of form, and the mental side of that, which is, I think, is a good thing, because like it's life lessons at the end of the day. Like, if life doesn't just go smoothly, you're gonna have good days, bad days, things go wrong, things go right, and it's just about adapting and building that mental capacity, like you said. But yeah, in terms of mental health, I probably didn't experience that as a footballer until I was a pro.
Hmm.
No, definitely, definitely.
Interesting, interesting.
So
All right,
yeah.
so I'm gonna quickly just kind of speed up a little bit. So
Mm.
obviously you've had your 2 years as a scholar. Towards the end of it, whereabouts in your scholar did you get your professional contract? Let's talk about like you leading up to get to that professional contract.
So yeah, so I say December time, so like 3 months, 4 months into my second year, I was flying. There was talks about clubs interested in me, Blackburn, Derby. At one point, Liverpool was mentioned, and I think at the moment Liverpool was mentioned, the club sort of started to get a bit serious and a bit conscious about an asset they had on their hands. But obviously, Liverpool were in a position to approach me and take me without any money, so they then offered me a professional deal and gave me a 2.5 year contract, which was unheard of at that time. I don't think anyone signed a contract that young for that amount of time. Um,
So
which was which was
we can't just brush past that as well. We have to give you your flowers for that. Obviously,
Mhm.
you've been killing it in youth football, doing what you needed to do. I remember seeing some of your highlight reels, and what you used to do to some defenders was ridiculous. And I've seen you do it against men as well. So like you to be able to get offered a 2.5 year deal at a club in League Two as well. That's a very
Mm.
long term deal for like lower down the table as well.
Yeah,
And
it
also
is.
that being given to you as a scholar, first contract, they knew what they was doing.
Definitely, definitely. I want to touch on the numbers as well, because I mentioned it previously. So the stats are, I remember the LFE. The LFE came in. So LFE are the League Football Education, I think it stands for, organization, and they come in for our scholar and talk about just education beyond football, really. And one thing that really stuck with me was the percentages in terms of people who get scholars and then people who end up playing pro. So I think the stats were 96% of players that get offered a scholarship won't get professional contracts, so 4% will. And out of those 4% that get offered a professional contract, it's something like 92 or 93% of those won't be playing in the professional game after 21. And at that time, I was like, raw. What's the point? That's true. So the odds are really against us. And it wasn't until signing pro that I realized how tough it is. Signing pro is one thing, but remaining a pro is another thing. It's difficult. Yeah, the
Yeah,
chances are slim.
I think
The chances are slim, boy.
there's a big perception, for, especially for people who are trying to make it pro. They feel like
Mm,
as soon as you get your pro, that's it, you've made it. Like you can never. It's like you don't really have to do too much to drop down. You know what I'm saying? So
mm,
like
mm,
you obviously lived there, whatever, and you've already just mentioned. I think it's really important that other players or any aspiring footballers they hear that it's hard work and you have to like push yourself to be the best to enable to kind of
mm,
maintain your position. It's not an easy thing. I don't want to discourage anyone. Like obviously all the odds are against you. Like it literally is. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it. But once you do get your opportunities, you do have to be able to grab them with both hands. And you don't let that slip. That's yours, and you run with it. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
So
Definitely, definitely.
I just wanted to add that.
No, definitely. And then yeah, to touch on it, so Sam Pro, and it was great. It was great. I was on FIFA, Football
Football manager.
Manager. Yeah, my name come up on Sky Sports News because it was actually January as Sam Pro because I remember it might have been like the last few days of the transfer window in the January transfer window, and it came up League Two, Cheltenham Town for young forward Jamal Lawrence signs on a long-term deal. And I was like, rah, I've made it. I remember looking at the screen like, wow, like this is it. Like I've made it, which is probably one of the worst things to feel because I'd say I'd say as quick as maybe 3 weeks after that time, my whole footballing journey was spun on its head in terms
So
of the manager.
let's wait. Let's. I just want to like just a little bit more transparency. So you signed your deal. It's on Sky Sports. So like obviously there's a big buzz. What is the buzz that like where did it take you? So were you having to do interviews? Like who
Yeah,
helped you negotiate this contract? Was there a negotiation, or this is just what we're offering? You have to sign it.
it was yeah. So I had agency like agent. I was with an agency at the time who kind of sorted out the contracts for me, but it was kind of a case of here's a contract, sign it. Like I guess looking at it now, looking back at it now, I was an asset to the club, so I could have negotiated a better deal for myself or asked my agents to negotiate a better deal for myself. But at the time, I was just in a position of maybe gratitude and just like acceptance of anything. Like I probably would have signed anything at the time, and it was a long-term deal. The money wasn't great, if I'm honest. Like you think of professional footballer, you think of Range Rovers and stuff like that. But yeah, money wasn't.
But the perception,
What's
but
that?
also like let's not forget like obviously it's still League Two. You're not
Mm,
in it with you're not in the Premier League. You're not like Arsenal, Man United, where players at that age would probably be millionaires before they
mm,
even play any men's football really.
yeah,
So I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Do you want to be transparent about like how much it was a week or something? I don't know. It's up to you. But like it could help just give a transparency in terms of what to expect at that level.
So yeah, I can be transparent. So as a youth team player, oh, I want to say it might have been something ridiculous, like £130 a week.
Okay,
So that
yeah.
was as a scholar. And then when I signed pro, so my pro contract varied in terms of what I got. So I think I signed early. So for that 6 month period, I think I was on maybe 250 a week. And then the next season it would jump up. And then the season after that it would jump up. I can't
Okay.
remember how much it went from. But again, £250 a week is not a lot. I could have worked full time in Tesco and got paid more. So it's just to put that into context really, because
But
it's great. And
I'm adding extra context to that because if you're going to tell someone that they'd rather be in Tesco and earn more money or become a professional footballer, I think people are going to choose professional football.
Yeah, it's again. I'm just yeah. I was mentioning that just in terms of monetary value, I guess. But obviously, the goal is to progress from that, and the reality is you have one good season, and that £250 a week could go to £2,500 a week. So it's that the
Yeah,
long term thinking there. But yeah. So where should I go from here? Yeah. So just quicken up then. So I yeah, for 3 weeks after signing pro, the manager that gave me the pro contract was sacked. A new manager came in, and yeah, there was rumors going around that um, this manager was going to come in and shake things up, and that's what he done. The entire squad had an overhaul, including a few of the youngsters, and at the end of the season, I was put on the transfer list. So up for a transfer, they wouldn't see it rid of me. Um, but yeah, just going through that 3 or 4 month spell where I won from the January I was signed pro on FIFA. All these great things were happening, and then near the end of February, like I was scrambling. Like the new gaffer came in, and it was dog work. Ended up just running. Didn't really see a football. Wasn't part of the first team setup. Um, And yeah, I just think about it now. Sometimes I think if he didn't come in, what would my life look like now? But yeah, you can't really think that way. But yeah, going into the summer, then I was in a position of I either stay and graft this out and try and change his perceptions. But he literally said to me that the season, at the end of season talks, that I wasn't in his plans and go find another club really. And I kind of took that as a gospel. Like things have
And
happened
what
before with other players. So
yeah, I was gonna say, so at that point where he's basically saying that the door is there, walk through it.
mm.
Um, were there any clubs like knocking about? Like obviously you mentioned prior that there was your is it Blackpool and Liverpool and all these different clubs. Was there still an eye on your situation at all?
No, so me signing pro kind of took away that interest, which was again something that I wasn't aware of. I didn't really understand that, but yeah, me signing pro kind of took away that interest. And when I did sign pro, I was playing left youth team games because I was traveling with the first team still as part of the first team setup. Wasn't on the bench until okay, so I was on the bench, but I didn't feature until the last game of the season. I played against Wickham, and yeah, that was an experience. It's still good to get on, but it was a bit bittersweet because I kind of knew that I had no future here, even though it was my league debut.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I didn't even mention that was the season Tottenham got relegated. So throughout that period, it was stress. I've still never felt stress like it in terms of being a young player, being in that environment. Even like rondos, I couldn't do rondos. It got to the stage where if I lose this ball, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna get it in the neck. Like I can't lose it. So I just stopped wanting the ball. And it really impacted me as a player because that confidence that I had growing up just went within like seconds.
Yeah.
And it took a while. Honestly, it must have took 2 years to get that back. And that's being serious as well. It must have taken
Yeah.
about 2 years to get that back. But, yeah, it's all just even just thinking back on it now because I touched about mental health. That was definitely a period for me where I struggled with, I guess maybe like I there was okay that 2 year period after being shown the door at Cheltenham. I ended up going on loan to Oxford City. Had an okay time there. Again, wasn't great. It was my first proper taste of men's football. I kind of went to Oxford City. I had a really good pre-season with them. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to start here. And then another guy that was put on the transfer list at Cheltenham came in my position, older than me, with more experience. Ended up kind of taking my position there, and I was just left to be on the bench, which wasn't great as a young player because you want to be playing. And I kind of went to Oxford City. It was 2 leagues below, thinking, yeah. I'm going to play here and kind of get my career back on track, which it didn't. So I ended up leaving Oxford City 3 months, or maybe four. No, it must have been about 4 months, like November time down the line, and I had enough. Like I couldn't play football anymore. It wasn't. I lost it, complete enjoyment. Mentally, I was in a rough place. I just couldn't get myself out of it. I was in some kind of ruts. I just couldn't think about football. I couldn't play it, and my confidence had gone. It was a peak time. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm.
I didn't know any way out, and my only way out was to remove the thing that was giving me these stresses and I guess anxiety. I guess because yeah, looking back on it now, I understand. I kind of understand what I was going through, but at the time, I was just down in the dumps, and I just didn't see no way out. And I
Do
remember
you
speaking to you
feel?
at the time. I remember, sorry,
I was gonna say, like, do you feel like there was uh the peak, like, so for example, you did have an agent, for example. Do you
yeah,
feel
yeah, yeah.
like they maybe the agency did enough to be able to support you? Because obviously they show a lot of interest when it comes to you being in your high and you looking like you're gonna progress, but then when you're in these stages, obviously everything is like it's that up and down when it comes to football. Not everything's just straight up, right? So
Hmm.
you got your ups and you got your downs, and like you know, I feel like your football team has to help you when it goes up. When you're injured, when you're up, you're scoring goals, and when you're injured, they should help you just the same. And like,
Hmm.
do you feel like you know you had people around you that were able to support you during that time?
I'd only say family, not in terms of clubs and agency. Like you said, when everything was going great and I was signing pro, scoring goals, everyone was around me, everyone was buzzing. But when it was flipped on its head, you start to become a bit more isolated. And I don't know. I guess one that would have been my personality and not wanting to reach out. I definitely recommend like people in that situation just to reach out to people because I still now I would be I'll be in situations and not reach out to people. I kind of internalize it and deal with it myself, but it's definitely not a healthy route to go down. So I would one recommend just talking about your situation more, and that would definitely help. But again, you kind of want those around you that were with you on the up, kind of supporting you as you're on the down. And I didn't get that from either the club or my agent or about all the agency at that time.
Mm, mm, mm. So, all right. So now you're in this dark place,
Mm.
right? And your options are limited. I don't know if you wanna touch on like basically where you went from there. Like obviously, I know you played for a handful of different clubs. At this point, are you released from Cheltenham?
So yeah, again, I was in a position where I was not I couldn't play football anymore. So I went to the manager and said, I'm done here. I need a way out. And he said, well, you're under contract and you've got two options. You stay and train and continue to get paid, or you leave and we pay part of your contract. And I ended up going for the latter. Um, and that feeling of just leaving Cheltenham, I remember driving away from the ground, just feeling just so relieved. Like, I used to go to training with like knots in my neck, just thinking about training and how stressful it was going to be, and the team losing every week, manager barking at people. I just couldn't do that anymore. And that feeling of that stress just was relieved after I had that conversation with the management. Um, yeah, so I was then without a club, and I didn't want to play football. My thoughts were just to have time out away from the game, which I did. And I thought, okay, I'm getting paid at the moment. I've still got money coming in because the situation was they pay my contract up for a certain amount of months, um, which they did, and it kind of got to a stage after in the new year at the time where I thought, right, I need to do something now. I actually need to do something with my time. So I started
Mm,
looking for jobs, and it was like it was part-time jobs. It wasn't anything serious. It was like I was applying for McDonald's and places like that because I just needed something to do, and it again I got kind of a reality check in that process as well because I was applying for these places and I was getting rejected, and in my head I was thinking, what? I was a professional footballer. How am I getting rejected from McDonald's? Like, how can I not get a job in McDonald's? I
Yeah,
was a pro footballer.
yeah.
Surely they'd want me, and that was a reality check, boy. Because yeah, you kind of as a footballer when you reach these stages, you kind of position yourself not above people, but you you see yourself within a certain status. You give yourself this status of professional footballer,
But people also give
and
it to you as well.
yeah, people also give it to you as well. You start to believe that, and it was definitely a reality check that was probably needed just to shape me up and realize that I'm now entering a different world, the world outside of football, and
Mm,
it's different. So
mm,
I ended up getting a part-time job at PC World. I had that for a month, and I could talk about this for ages, but quickly, I remember some players that I was playing with like 2 months ago coming into the shop, and I was like, raw, they can't see me that I'm working here. I remember running to the toilet and staying in the toilet for like 45 minutes until until they left, and then I came back out. But during these times I had looking back on it, it was I had like massive identity crisis. You kind of lose yourself within it, and throughout my life, I guess I was always known as a footballer. And for me not to be that guy anymore, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I stood for really. I didn't know. Yeah, I just lost that feeling of myself. And yeah, it took a while to get that back. I didn't go. I was literally isolating myself. Didn't go out. Didn't see no one. Just kept myself to myself and kept it moving really.
mm,
So I ended up then getting a job at Sainsbury's again. I didn't want to be seen by anyone else, so I got a job within a warehouse where I'd be kind of away from the public, and that was a route for me. It helped me kind of step away from football and I guess focus on something else without having the anxiety of people running into me and being like, "What? How come you're here? Like you were a professional footballer a year ago. What are you doing here?" Um, so I was at Sainsbury's for a few months, and then this is probably a year into me leaving Cheltenham, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not playing football anymore. I need to find some kind of a career." And I ended up just applying for a whole heap of places, like wherever what at the time I thought was a serious job, I was applying for. I remember applying for a job within finance as an apprentice. Um,
You
what else
at
did
this
I
time
apply for?
you're looking at apprentice roles and stuff like that.
Yeah, this entry level roles. So I was applying for quite a few, and I ended up stumbling into a carpentry apprenticeship, which was what I say. Yeah, I say this now. It's probably the best thing that happened to me. Um, well, at the time, it was again. I felt like I stepped back into my old football experience because the guys within that firm were very firm, old head, old headed, guys that would just bark at you constantly every day, day in, day out. And it kind of I guess it woke me up and made me realize that I'm in a different world and I need to start grafting again and think of that. I remember the guy saying to me, the same way you used to put all your time into football, you now have to do this with carpentry. And when he said that, I was like, that's true, but carpentry is not my thing. I don't want to be, that's not what I want to do. So during that time, I was getting grilled at work, but it also made me think about a plan B. And I remember throughout my mom, everyone used to say this to me, what if football doesn't work out? And I used to say, I remember seeing Oxlade Chamberlain say something like, if if you I don't need a plan B because it distracts from my plan A. I used to say that to everyone. And
Yeah.
I was then in a position where I was thinking about a plan B. And my plan B at the time when I was at carpentry was a footwear label. Well, I guess it didn't start off as a football label. I saw the likes of Reese Vara start his own clothing label, and I thought, yeah, that's quite cool. I'm quite into fashion, but why can't I do something similar? But I didn't want to do clothes because that was quite generic at the time. I wanted to do something different, which led me to footwear. And I was using the money that I had saved up from Cheltenham, as well as the money I was earning as an apprentice, and that money then went towards starting my own footwear label, which is where I guess my social media career kickstarted without me realizing in terms of growing a page, using ads, community management, and then the other side of it, which is the finance route, um, logistics, sourcing,
So again,
sampling.
So I just want to touch on something really quickly. Again, another huge accomplishment that you've just, mentioned there, and you kind of just brushed past it a little bit.
Mm,
You working as a carpenter, you would say arguably is probably one of your lowest points of your life. At that time, how old were
hmm.
you?
Oh,
Like
19,
19, right?
19,
Most
20.
people are just out partying and doing uni and stuff, right? So obviously you're
Mm,
getting hit with real life really quickly after just a major high, maybe 18 months prior.
mm.
And I want to know, or maybe the audience want to know, is how did you go from that? Where did the motivation come from to go out and create a shoe? Like you have created a shoe. I just remember personally, obviously, I've seen months of sketches, months of like prototypes. Ah, this looks terrible. All these different
Mm,
things to finally launching. You launch this, you
mm,
launch your own shoe. You're just a boy from
mm,
Gloucester, by the way. You
mm.
launch your own shoe. Do you know anyone else who's launched a shoe?
Nah, it's mad. It's mad thinking about that. Yeah, it's
So
mad.
your flowers need
It
to be
is mad.
given to you. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's a big achievement.
Well, I guess, yeah, where did my motivation come from? I guess being okay, so to think back, being a footballer kind of gave me that status. And when I no longer played football, that status was taken away from me. I was known as the footballer, and then now I was no longer known as that. And I kind of wanted that back. I wanted to be known for something different rather than just a carpenter or just a standard way of life. I wanted something different for myself. So I saw the likes of Risa Barra do Menez Devoir, and I wanted to kind of emulate that. So I thought footwear. And like you said, it was a graph getting that off the ground. Yeah, it probably took me about 18 months, if not 2 years, to get to be in a position to launch it. Samples hit to and fro. Um, Sketches. Again, one, I can't draw. So that was that again, another issue, which is why it took so long. And then I came across Fiverr and I realized that I don't actually need to draw. I can do the rough outlines and I can pay someone to do a digital CAD I can then send to a manufacturer that can then make these samples. And it's a longer process, but I had to find a way. And that way ended up working for me. So again, I must have had 7 samples, I think, in terms of, and then I had my final design, which all in all took a year, 18 months, I think. And then I
Mm.
was, yeah, ready to launch. But yeah, during this time, still a carpenter, still crafting. The house we were working on was nearly complete, which kind of says a lot about how long I was doing this for. Um, and yeah, and then I was going for like with my trainer label, which again was another tough experience, kind of understanding how much work is needed to run your own company and keep it afloat. And I was running at a loss for all I say for all during the whole time. Like, I wasn't getting enough money in terms of sales, but I was trying to keep up with the demand of um seasonal demand, I guess, in terms of new season drops and keeping up with trends. I remember quite naively thinking, okay, here's my first batch of trainers. I had 2 colorways. I'm thinking, oh yes, I can breathe now. Without thinking, right, there's another season dropping in 4 or 5 months. I've got to keep up with that. And it's kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
yeah, it's
It's a
being in
lot.
fashion now. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person to do. And at that time, I kind of thought, I just want to be known for this. I don't need a team around me. I can do it all myself. But really, I should have branched off and said, okay, I need help here. Who can jump on board? But yeah,
So, but
it's a learning curve.
the great thing about that though is that obviously being so young, you've been exposed to like all that you've been exposed to in terms of building a business. Like you said, you had to run ads. I do remember you mentioning Gary Vee a lot. He probably was a big contributing factor in terms of getting you to do things as well. Like, and that exposure at such a young age is great. And as much as you probably wanted the shoe company to be a great success, that probably led you on to your next opportunity, which
Mm.
you again you took with both hands. So you moved into a marketing agency.
Yeah,
Off
shout.
the back,
Shout. If I was going to just say shout out to Gary V as well. Gary V, Wes Brown, and what's the
Wes
guy's
Brown, the
name?
footballer, or Les Brown.
No, Les Brown. Sorry, Les Brown. Wes Brown. I mean, Les Brown and what? Oh, what's the game? What's the name? Gobbins. I forgot his name.
Tony Robbins.
No, Gobbins. Oh, there's another guy. I can't remember his name, but yeah. But without these motivational speakers and these gurus, I guess they got me through the time. But yeah, going fast forward now in terms of my time at my digital agency, it was my first proper job, I guess, at a first full-time job, and I was given an opportunity based on what I'd done for Estrada, which I never thought would be the case. I didn't think what I was doing with Estrada would warrant me getting a job within an agency or within another brand, to be honest. But it did, and I was kind of surprised by it. But again, I just was open to it and kind of just took just I guess just ran with the punches, I guess, and started the job. At first, I was definitely out of my comfort zones. I was used to one being outside, not used to being in stuck in an office for from nine till six. I think that's my working hours were at the time. I wasn't used to that. Um, and then two, getting on with colleagues. Again, these are very simple like skills, I guess. But because I was in different working environments in terms of football and carpentry, I wasn't used to that interacting in that type of way, which again I struggled with because I didn't know how I should, I guess, behave. One, I didn't know how to be myself around them,
Hmm.
which probably people could tell because I was like quite distant, I guess. But it kind of how it worked to my benefit because I was able to just crack on with my job and progress, I guess, and learn as I went on, which helped. Yeah, so whilst I was at the agency, I worked with a few big brands, the leading Chinese sauce supplier in the world, which is crazy because the numbers they do is insane, and the budgets I then had to look after in terms of social budgets was hefty. And then that is where I kind of learnt my trade, I guess, in terms
Yeah.
of social, diving into ads, the organic side as well, speaking with clients, reporting, um, and I was kind of like one of the managers I had at the carpentry apprenticeship said I needed to kind of change my focus from living, breathing football to something else. I then done that with social media and and the ad side, which worked to my benefit because I was able to develop. And then I was working there for 2 years, and then I was approached by Superdry, which I made a leap, and I was back in the fashion world, which which I loved and I've always loved, and to think at every position I've been in within marketing, I've always got the job because of what I've done with Estrada. So
Yeah.
even though the amount of money I spent and lost with Estrada, and the difficulty of accepting that the business isn't going to work, and the feelings around that, I still ended up it still ended up being a positive because I was able to get a job and then get a job within an agency, and then getting a job with a global brand purely because of what I'd done with Estrada and the entrepreneurial mindset I had at the time. So even though I didn't do well with the business still done well for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like what it's done is that although it might not have made you money then, it's made you like you probably recuperated much more in the future because of that experience that has happened. And
Definitely.
I think I think personally from what I'm hearing from the story, which is it's an incredible story because you've been able to dig deep to get yourself out of this situation, and you've created your own opportunity. You didn't expect this opportunity to happen, but you didn't just sit around doing nothing. You tried
Mm.
something that you were interested in, and that something led you to other doors. And I think that's a really
Mm.
important thing, because sometimes people just expect things to just happen for them, and they're not really putting out any effort into anything. But
Mm-hmm.
you, working a job that you didn't like, getting barked at every day, still coming home and working on a different passion of yours. And then that was the passion that led you into social media. That was your way out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people need to hear that. Like, a lot of people need to understand that you need to do something in order to get something. You can't
Yeah,
put out
definitely.
you can't put out an energy that is a low energy. You're just going to get a low energy back. If you want something to come back full circle, you really have to put some work in. And I
Mm.
guess it's kind of like obvious advice. I'm no guru or anything like that, but you're a prime example of that. You put the work in, right? And you had to do it on something that was outside of football. And now you've gone full circle. You worked for a digital marketing agency, and then your next step was into fashion, which you've always kind of been interested in outside of football. Like, maybe not as big as football as you were, but it was always kind of there, like lingering. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously you started the trainers, and then you go back into fashion again. You're back into the seasons, and then you're now
Mm-hmm.
doing, different festivals. Like, marketing can take you to so many different places, and that's probably another discussion on a different episode. Just like where marketing can take you, because marketing can take you to very, very different places, and it's such a big landscape. There's so much things that go on in marketing as a whole, and in digital marketing. But your
Mm.
journey
Definitely.
into social media marketing is a very unique one, and I think that um if you have any like in job interviews and you share this story alone, there is no way that this story is not going to be able to trigger like an emotional I guess response. It's going to trigger a lot of people, and it'll be very hard to be able to not give you the job, because you've really gone through the untraditional like route into social media. You haven't got a degree. You haven't got yeah, obviously you haven't been to university. Most of your life has been based around football, and that was your main thing, to now where you're just killing it at social media. You now got your own social media podcast. You're being recognized for the work that you're doing now, and it's not in football anymore, and it's now in social media.
Mm.
Where others get lost. Some others get lost. Some people, and as you probably know, they will stay at Sainsbury's and get lost. They just stay there. They're just
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in that lifestyle. Not to say that Sainsbury's is bad or anything like that. Obviously, if you want to be there, then you want to be there. But if you don't want to be there and you're just staying there, the decision is yours. It's nobody else's. The decision is for you to somehow work on yourself to get yourself out of that situation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's nobody else's responsibility but your own. So
No, definitely, definitely. And
uh,
it's not an easy transition. I know a lot of players that have gone through the same transition and who have struggled and are still struggling. But it's just about persistence, I think, and sticking true to yourself and not getting sidetracked on the long term goal and trying to make long term decisions rather than
yeah,
short term ones. Because if I'm honest, a lot of footballers get used to the money they're living, and when football doesn't work for them, they go after the quick buck, which might not always be legal. And then it's just being aware of that and knowing that you've got more options than going down another route that might not be the best route for you.
yeah, yeah. And I think, like, speaking to any young aspiring footballers out there at the moment, if you are listening to this podcast on the off chance, like, I just want you to understand that there is a life outside of football, and obviously, whilst you're in football, you do want your focus to be like on football. But now with the birth of social media, you're seeing a lot of players talking about kind of having something else to go to just to give them a different outside, like a different view on life. Because football
Mm.
can be your life and take over your life, but you know, their football comes to an end, you know, and I'm not gonna tell you like focus on a plan B or anything like that. I feel like for you, Jam, my opinion is you focus on plan A and plan A didn't work, and then you had a new plan A. That to me it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, plan B or whatever. Um
Mm.
it is still very much plan A, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and then you go on and you have a new plan A. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
you should never be too afraid to focus on your plan A. You know, I think part of being a man is being able to live on your edge, live on that edge. You know, I don't know if I'm gonna make rent this month. You know, but the
Mm.
end of it, it's end of it is worth it. If you're just gonna sit in that comfortable job and never get pushed to your edge, you're not gonna find your growth. You're not gonna
Mm.
grow um into the place you need to be. You need to really be pushed. Otherwise, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's no growth and comfortability.
Nah,
So
the phrase "pressure makes diamonds" is so true, so true.
yeah,
I've even forgot to mention I found out that I was expecting a little boy. But I found out what my partner was pregnant whilst I was trying to push Estrada forward, and that kind of made me like go into another gear and just make things work.
mm,
I
mm,
remember my partner's family put pressure on me about obviously looking after the little one and like maintaining how I support them, and my income at the moment wasn't at that moment in time wasn't regular because I was trying to focus on the business and all of that. But yeah, fresh like you said, living on that edge can push you to places you've never been before, and you start to see a different side of you in terms of willingness to make things happen.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? That's also another episode. You know, like you just mentioning becoming a dad and then what that does to you. I could see that
Mm,
being a good one. You know, being a dad
definitely, definitely.
especially being a young dad as well. What
Mm,
that does, and you know, a lot of people say it. I've spoken to many dads, and they're like, you know, I go into a second gear. This is me. Like, I'm not focused on anything. Why am I going out? Why am I, you know, doing this or whatever? Like, you have
mm,
someone else that relies on you for everything, you know.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I think this has been an amazing chat. It's been amazing to uncover your story. I still feel like there's missing pots and stuff, but like, you know what? You've done a great job, and like your career so far is an amazing story, and then I don't see it going anywhere else but up. You know, I mean, obviously you're gonna have your
Mm,
ups and downs, but the right attitude, mentality, it's all kind of like on like it's all what's it called? It's all aligned at the moment, and like
mm,
you're gonna push into the right direction. Obviously, I know about some of your other business ventures that you've done as well, and that you're currently trying to do as well, and even your partner's business as well. Like you're a key figure in that as well, and like
mm-hmm.
there's so much more success around your story after football, um, that defines you better than probably football has ever defined you. So you know,
Definitely. That's well put.
your flowers are there, man. Your flowers are there. So yeah, man. If I could just press the applaud button on here, I don't know if there was one. I need a sound button.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like flowers are there. Like you know, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been a blessing, and yeah, I don't know. Should we wrap it up there? Actually, before we do, quick social media updates before I forget.
Yeah, we forget. Yeah, we forgot about it. Yeah, let's get them in. Let's get them in quickly.
Quick social media update. So I would actually there's only one update. There's not been much been going on this week, to be fair. So Snapchat, they've launched their new lenses within the app, which teaches users to, I guess, use sign language. As a part of International Week of the Deaf, the new lenses kind of aim to help maximize inclusion, whilst obviously raising awareness about sign language. You know what? Sign language is really, really important. Um, I'm trying to teach my son sign language. I know a lot of doctors are learning sign language. I want to learn like sign language. I think it's a great other way of communication, and I do a lot with my hands. And I think that if I could actually add like a language that would go alongside what I like, all my hand expressions, I thought that'd be quite cool.
Mm.
So
No,
yeah,
definitely.
big up the sign language, and it's a good move from Snapchat. I think it's quite a unique move as well from Snapchat. So yeah,
Yes, they're going above and beyond there. Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of
so,
companies don't really acknowledge awareness days in that way. So yeah, yeah, congratulations to them.
yeah, man, big them up, big them up. So that's a wrap from us, the Social Living Podcast. You can listen to us on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or and Spotify, RSS, all the listening audio platforms. You can just hear us on that. And
We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
we are everywhere, man. Peace out. We out.